Now, I'm not sure whether there's any collusion that developed from a certain meeting in San Francisco a few weeks ago or not, as to some of the comments that Shirley has just made in relation to some of the comments that our speaker is going to make in a few minutes. I'll leave you be the judge of that. But it is a rare pleasure to have the opportunity to present our speaker this evening. Rarely do we have an opportunity to hear a speaker so uniquely qualified by experience and education as our speaker is this evening. Mrs. Fadem has taught at the high school and college level in public and private institutions. She has been active in social studies organizations at the state and national level. As chairman and a member of the Academic Freedom Committee since 1963, she was instrumental in the painful development of a policy document that was adopted by the National Council last November in Houston, entitled Academic Freedom and the Social Studies Teacher. Those of you that haven't read it, you'll find it in the April 1970 edition of Social Education, pages 489 to 491. I recommend it to your attention. There's blood, sweat, and tears on every word in it, and you may find it useful. She is also currently a member of the nominating committee of the National Council for Social Studies. So if you wish to enter into the politics of the organization and suggest someone you might wish to have nominated for a national office, here is one person that you could contact. Mrs. Fadem is not a stranger to the area of practical politics. She is a member of the California Democratic delegation to the last two National Party conventions, the one in Atlantic City and the one in Chicago. She's a member of the Democratic State and County Central Committees. Mrs. Fadem has been involved in too many political campaigns to list them all here. Currently, she is the Director of Political and Legislative Activities for the California Teachers Association, the Southern Sector. Our speaker believes that teachers should become active in those areas that affect the future of education. She practices what she preaches. It is a distinct pleasure and a rare privilege to present our speaker of the evening, Mrs. Joyce Fadem, who will discuss politics, participation, and the profession. Mrs. Fadem.
Thank you, Dr. Egan. Presidents, past presidents. I'm sorry that Shirley Engel had to leave, because he did indeed give me the best possible introduction I can think of when he said that we don't have enough influence peddling. Because, in fact, influence peddling is something we always talk about, and we really don't have the ability, and too few people realize it. It's like the weather. Everybody always complains about the weather, but no one does anything about it. It's the same thing with politics. Most people think that there's nothing they can do. I believe that there is a great deal that we can do. It is in the spirit of re-examining, then, where we are as a profession, and in looking at the opportunities which lie ahead, that I ask some questions and share some thoughts with you this evening about politics, participation, and our profession. In this period of rapid change, there are many questions to which we don't have answers. If this makes us a little bit uncomfortable with what is, I hope it also causes us to work for something better. What should be the role of the teacher in the political process? A detached, objective observer or a participant? We know that decisions affecting education are political by their very nature. Who should have the right to an education? How long should he be educated? What should he learn? Must his schools be integrated? Who pays the bill? Politics is a process which helps us get things done and get questions like these decided. And politics involves people. People make things happen. Because we care, we must act. I I believe we must accept our responsibility to give direction to the development and change so that the proper priority is assigned to the goal of quality education for our children. I suggest that the role of the teacher in the political system should be one of personal and professional involvement in leadership. Teachers are particularly well equipped for this assignment. They can communicate with local school boards, with administration, and with the community. They understand the successes and the failures, the needs and the problems of education. As professionals, they are trained to evaluate suggestions, policies, and directions. Yet up to this point, the most annoying thing about teachers is that we have been apologetic about our role, especially as regards community activities. We have succeeded in helping our students learn both the theory and the mechanics of politics. But where we fall short is in learning the lessons we teach. The man who pulls the lever on the tractor plows the turf. It is not the man who writes the treatise on agriculture. We know too little about the organization of our political parties and the intricacies of the nomination and selection of candidates. I believe that experience is likely to be our best teacher. Politics is not a bad word. It is a good word. It is synonymous with decision-making in a democracy. Like any process, it can be abused. But the mark of a good citizen is to know how to use politics and to do so effectively. Why is it necessary to talk about participation with you? You know as much as any other group in the nation about the theory and practice of government. Your concern is self-evident. But generally, throughout the nation, there is a gap between the rationale supporting teachers in politics and the reality of their participation. Closing that gap is a pioneering effort and a critical goal. Furthermore, many forces exist which would deny to teachers political action and leadership. Nowhere is the inconsistency and the insanity of this position, the denial of civil rights to teachers, more evident than it is in California today. Dr. Engel alluded to the fact that he's giving us a little bit of support. And he is indeed. And he is on an area where, in California, the state superintendent and the governor identify with forces which restrict education rather than expand it. Our state superintendent is more adept at the political phrase than he is at the educational solution. He harangues at straw men, blames teachers for the problems of education, and provides little impetus towards solving those problems. When I teach California government, I often tell my classes that our state produces more fruits and nuts than any other place in the nation. Like so many humorous comments, it contains a poignant element of truth. Just the highlights of the events in California education during the last few weeks would give you some idea. Close to 13,000 Los Angeles teachers are on strike. There is, in fact, almost total disruption of the second largest school system in the nation. And one of our state senators' solution is based on the suggestion that the teachers who voted for the strike should be fired. The state legislature itself is engaged in a gigantic struggle over the budget and in appropriations for education, which has resulted in nothing. No money, no solutions, no changes. For many legislators, in fact, it is business as usual, despite the reality that 500,000 young people have not been in school for the last month. Ask California teachers, then, about how the system of financing public education is crumbling under the strain. Ask them about these reactionary elements in their society which seek to curtail their freedom in the classroom, and about the need for teacher power and the ability to peddle influence. They are convinced of the folly of our professional withdrawal from the sphere of influence. The status of the teacher in society was once quite different. The Greeks viewed teachers as the center of their state. Socrates was the gadfly of Athens. His student Plato was the confidant and advisor of rulers. Aristotle exercised a teacher's influence upon all the countries of the Middle East through his pupil Alexander. And in Rome, too, intellectuals like Cicero pursued academic and political careers simultaneously. The teacher was a leader. Teachers, in a rabbinical sense, were the key figures in the social studies and in the social structure. Today, we are battling to break away from the image of Mr. Peepers and our Miss Brooks. Parts of our society laugh at the teacher and seek to make him the object of ridicule and suspicion. Despite any sentimental journey with Mr. Chips, we must claim and reclaim a pivotal position in society. We must resume our role as an opinion molder and as a leader. Some of us still accept the shackles of a bygone era in which we were cast as second-class citizens. Remember when teachers were supposed to stay within the classroom and look after the children, to leave politics to the politicians? Political participation was unprofessional. Politics was dirty. We placed special emphasis on that word professional. It permitted us to put on the mantle of the expert and to deny any responsibility for personal involvement. It provided, I believe, a euphemistic way to cop out. More difficult to overcome are the barriers to our first-class citizenship, which are being erected today by people who are frightened by teacher activists and the manifestations of teacher rebellion. The problem is that these people cannot redesign their ideas. They cannot adjust their institutions, nor can they accommodate to the changes around them. Rather, they perceive change as a threat, and they respond by suppressing our search for relevancy. They seek the security of things as they once were. Within the educational establishment, moreover, it is not unusual to find strong forces struggling to keep us in our traditional and proper place. Too often, educational bureaucrats have their own petty fiefdoms. They're afraid to take the risks which of necessity accompany change and progress. They resist efforts by members of their staff who dare question the wisdom of yesterday's decision. Taking risks, having the courage to speak out and to withstand the uncertainties of the outcome, has many facets. I believe one of the main aspects is the concept that a teacher must be free to teach without undue restriction, and the student free to learn. A teacher's academic freedom is this right and responsibility to study, investigate, interpret, and discuss all the relevant facts and ideas in the field of his professional competence. This freedom implies no limitations other than those imposed by generally accepted standards of scholarship. It is distinguished from free speech, which relates to the faculty members' or students' freedom outside of the classroom. It is activities outside of the classroom with which we are concerned here. Teachers may not constitutionally be compelled to give up their First Amendment rights merely because they happen to be employed as teachers. Nor can we tolerate those who would restrict the teacher outside of the classroom, though on campus. As the Supreme Court held in the Pickering case last year, it can hardly be argued that students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. Freedom of the academic community is also vital to our democratic way of life, which depends for its very existence upon the free competition and examination of ideas. As there is a need for the free exchange of ideas in the classroom, so too that need is critical beyond the confines of the ivory tower. And what about the obligation of the profession to the political system viewed as a totality? Freedom means the ability to choose. To be free is to select among alternatives. As a free people, we make our decisions collectively. Thomas Jefferson, perhaps the most eloquent spokesman for the ability of people to govern themselves, considered education and self-government mutually dependent. He recognized that the strength of democracy rested upon the ability of people to become enlightened. It rested, too, upon the ability of the enlightened to provide leadership. Is there any other group in society more ideally suited, better equipped by training and understanding, by insight and experience, to provide leadership in the exercise of democracy than members of this profession? If you agree with my point of view, the question still remains, how does one withstand the pressures of a principal who gives a poor rating, or a school board which withholds a promotion or a desired transfer? Each of you knows cases where these and other devices restrain teachers who want to enter the real world of political activity. Grappling with the pressures which still mitigate against teacher participation is not easy. In urban school districts, the problem is less acute than in the suburban or rural areas because of the anonymity of the big city. But everywhere, the more teachers who participate, the easier it will be for each. Most often, the pressures are more imagined than real. Teachers censor themselves in anticipation of negative reactions. They respond to possible attention, criticism, or pressure by becoming fearful. It is our responsibility to stay alert to possible restrictions of academic freedom, but to remember that each subtle withdrawal or loss of freedom by any member of the profession diminishes the freedom of all. Even though you are persuaded, and even if you don't care about the principal or the school board, you may still hesitate to walk from this room and mount the public platform as a spokesman for what you believe. Take a first step instead. Every community has its power structure. In it are many groups and organizations which you know well and which affect community decisions. Join one of them. Volunteer to do some work. Express your views. Take part in the activities. You'll be amazed at how quickly you are a leader. Very few people are willing to give of themselves to work in the public interest. Almost none can match your communication and organization skills and knowledge. That's the way you can take the ideas we've been talking about and convert them into the real thing. If this is a time of trial for teachers, and I believe it is also a time of opportunity. The benefits to be derived by society, by teachers, by children, make our participation in the political process an imperative. We are witnessing a revolution, as someone said earlier, in awareness. Young people especially are no longer willing to accept a passive role. They want to function as agents of change to make it a better tomorrow. But in most places in the country, they haven't been giving their president standing ovations. They are floundering. They are unable to implement their goals through institutions with which they are impatient and unfamiliar. The problems these young people raise will not be solved speedily. But their ultimate solution depends in part on whether young people feel that the channels of communication, persuasion, and change are truly open. We can help them acquire the skills and achieve the facility to move beyond meaningless student protests and into meaningful political action. Those of us who understand the causes of their frustration can help them effect change through the democratic processes. We can help them exchange respect for human rights, for rebellion and riot, democratic action for demonstration and dissent. At least in the area of education, teachers are better equipped to lead, more keenly aware, and more personally committed and concerned. John W. Gardner, in an article entitled "The Anti-Leadership Vaccine," said, "Leaders serve as symbols of the moral unity of society. They express the values that hold society together. More importantly, they conceive and articulate goals that lift people out of their petty preoccupations and unite them in pursuit of objectives worthy of their best efforts." We know that we can do better in our schools. We know we must do better. We can understand that although the public education reflects the current public crisis in values, it is also our most important means of overcoming that crisis. As leaders, we can communicate new goals tailored to the society which is evolving. As leaders, we can stimulate a renewed commitment to opportunity and excellence in education, and cause society to assign education a priority as the single most vital undertaking of government. We live in an age of increasing affluence, amidst a revolution in awareness, challenged by chaotic change in every sphere of our lives. We know that we have not kept pace. The time is scary, and the task looms large. Emerson wrote, "If there is any period which one would desire to be born in, is it not the era of revolution, when the old and the new stand side by side and admit of being compared, when all the energies of man are searched by fear and hope, when the historic glories of the old can be compensated by the rich possibilities of a new era. This time, like all times, is a very good one if one but knows what to do with it."